Welcome back to Book to Read. We're on episode number 18.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what that means?
Time for
Another classic.
another classic. I love it.
This time,
Yeah.
it's William Golding's Lord of the Flies,
Ooh, a good one.
a book that's probably haunted a few of your nightmares, right?
It's definitely one that sticks with you.
Yeah.
You know, I think what makes Lord of the Flies so unsettling is how it takes this idyllic setting, like a deserted tropical island,
Right.
and twists it into a mirror reflecting the darkest parts of human nature.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
The setup is deceptively simple. A group of British schoolboys stranded after a plane crash. No adults.
Freedom.
Total freedom. You'd think it would be all sunshine and games, but
Yeah. But Golding uses that premise to explore what happens when the rules of society vanish.
right.
It's like he's asking, what's left when we strip away the veneer of civilization?
Yeah.
What primal instincts emerge?
Yeah.
And the answers he provides are, well, pretty bleak.
Bleak is putting it mildly. Before we get too deep into the darkness, though, let's take a quick break to hear from our friends at Bookspace.
Speaking of diving deep,
Ooh.
Bookspace is the perfect place to connect with other readers who are,
Right.
shall we say, equally obsessed with dissecting the meaning behind every sentence.
Yeah, imagine a whole community ready to debate the symbolism of Piggy's specs
Yes.
or the chilling implications of the Lord of the Flies.
Ooh, I like that.
That's Bookspace. It's an app where you can connect, share your favorite quotes, thoughts, even organize your whole library.
It's a beautiful thing.
Link is in the show notes. Check it out.
Now back to the island.
All right.
As you delve into Lord of the Flies, pay close attention to Golding's masterful use of symbolism.
Okay.
It's practically woven into the very fabric of the island,
Yeah.
adding layers of meaning to everything from a simple conch shell
Wow.
to the characters themselves.
Let's start with the characters because, let's be honest, they're not just your average shipwrecked schoolboys.
No, they're not.
Each one represents a different aspect of human nature, almost like archetypes battling it out for dominance.
Exactly. You have Ralph, the elected leader, clinging to order and reason. He's that voice inside of us that wants to believe in rules, in fairness, in a civilized way of doing things.
But then you've got Piggy, the intellectual.
Oh, Piggy.
He's all about logic and rules,
Yeah.
but he's also physically vulnerable,
Yes.
making him an easy target in this increasingly brutal environment.
What's fascinating about Piggy is that he represents something crucial, intellect. But as the situation on the island deteriorates,
Yeah.
reason and logic become less and less valuable.
Right.
What happens to Piggy is deeply symbolic of what happens to those values in the face of chaos.
And then there's Jack, right?
Oh, Jack.
The charismatic hunter who appeals to the boys' primal instincts.
Yes.
He promises them freedom, fun, and meat.
Neat.
But that freedom comes at a cost, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Jack embodies that part of us that craves power, that's easily seduced by the thrill of the hunt.
Right.
The satisfaction of immediate desires.
Right?
He represents the descent into savagery,
Yeah.
the abandonment of moral boundaries in the pursuit of power and pleasure.
It's almost like watching a social experiment unfold.
Yes.
These boys, products of a structured society,
Right.
slowly unraveling as they grapple with their newfound freedom.
Exactly.
The island becomes a microcosm of this larger struggle within human nature itself.
And the island itself is just as important as the characters, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
At first, it's paradise, abundant with fruit,
Yeah.
pristine beaches, a true Garden of Eden. But as the boys' behavior becomes more savage,
Right.
so too does the island reflect that shift.
You see it in Golding's descriptions, right?
Yes, you do.
The lush landscape gradually takes on a more menacing, almost sinister quality as the story progresses.
It's true.
It's like the island itself is mirroring the boys' internal turmoil, their loss of innocence.
It's a brilliant literary technique.
Right.
Golding uses the setting not just as a backdrop,
Right.
but as an active participant in the story,
Right.
reflecting the themes of paradise loss,
Right.
the fragility of civilization,
Yeah.
the encroaching darkness that threatens to consume them all.
Okay, so the stage is set. This group of boys, this island paradise, quickly morphing into something, darker.
Yes.
Let's dive into the specific symbols Golding uses to really hammer home his message.
Okay.
Because he doesn't hold back.
He does not. Let's start with the conch.
Okay.
It's just the shell, right?
Right.
But in Golding's hands, it becomes something so much more.
At first, it's this symbol of order,
Yes.
of democracy.
Right.
Whoever holds the conch has the right to speak, to be heard.
It's their voice.
Yeah, it's their way of creating a system, maintaining some semblance of the civilization they left behind.
But think about what happens to the conch.
Yeah.
It's gradually disregarded, its power diminished,
Right.
until it's finally
Shattered.
shattered, gone. It's almost like watching the boys' hope for a rational, democratic society
Just crumble.
crumble before our very eyes.
It's a pretty brutal visual metaphor, right?
It is.
And it's not just the conch.
No.
There's piggy specks, too.
Piggy specs, yeah.
They represent intellect, the ability to see clearly, both literally and metaphorically.
And what happens to those specs?
Bro, they're broken, stolen,
Yeah.
eventually used as a tool of violence.
It's like Golding is saying that reason and intellect are the first casualties in the descent into savagery.
It's disturbing how the boys treat Piggy.
Yeah.
They mock him, dismiss him, ultimately turn against him.
They do.
It's like they're rejecting everything he represents.
Yeah,
Logic, knowledge, critical thinking.
precisely.
And then, of course,
Yeah.
there's the big one, the symbol that gives the book its title, the Lord of the Flies.
Ah,
This rotting pig's head on a stick.
yeah.
It's one of the most disturbing images in literature,
It really is.
wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
It's definitely up there on the creepo-meter,
Yeah.
but it's more than just gross.
Right.
It represents something much deeper,
Yes.
much darker.
Exactly.
The Lord of the Flies embodies primal fear,
Yes.
the darkness inherent in human nature.
The darkness, that's it.
It's the embodiment of chaos,
Right.
of the savage impulses that lurk beneath the surface of civilization.
And it's Simon, that quiet, introspective boy
Yes.
who really seems to understand what the Lord of the Flies represents.
Yeah, he has this almost mystical connection to the island,
He does.
this deeper understanding of the evil that's taking root.
He's like a prophet warning of the impending doom.
Yeah.
But tragically,
No one listens.
no one listens to him.
They dismiss him as
It's
strange,
strange.
as a baddie,
Yeah.
and his death. It's almost a ritualistic sacrifice,
Right.
a rejection of the very qualities he embodies.
Yeah.
Empathy, spirituality,
Yeah.
a true understanding of the evil at play.
The way Golding describes the boy's descent into savagery is so powerful,
It is.
so visceral.
You see it in the way they paint their faces, transforming themselves into something primal, almost unrecognizable.
That face paint is more than just camouflage.
Right.
It's a mask,
Yeah.
a way of shedding their individual identities, of becoming a collective driven by instinct rather than reason.
Right.
It's a chilling visual representation of how easily we can lose ourselves in the midst of a mob mentality.
And the hunt. Oh, man, the hunt. It starts as a way of survival,
Of course,
but it quickly becomes something much more sinister.
it does.
That scene where they kill the pig is like a turning point, a descent into bloodlust and ritualistic violence.
It's a powerful, disturbing scene.
Yeah.
The boys chant.
They cover themselves in blood.
Yes, they revel in the kill.
It's a primal, almost religious experience for them.
It is.
And it marks a clear break from the civilized world they left behind.
And what's really striking is how easily they slip into that savagery.
Oh.
There's no hesitation, no moral conflict.
At least not at first.
Not at first.
It's almost like those primal instincts were always there,
Yeah.
lurking beneath the
Yes.
surface,
Yeah.
just waiting for the right moment to emerge.
That's the unsettling truth that Golding is forcing us to confront. He's suggesting that maybe civilization isn't as ingrained in us as we like to think. Maybe it's just a thin veneer, easily stripped away when fear and violence take hold.
And then, of course, you have the signal fire.
The signal fire.
It represents their connection to the outside world,
Yes.
their only hope for rescue.
Right.
But the way they treat the fire is so telling.
It's a constant struggle between those who see the fire as essential for survival
Right.
and those who see it as an obstacle to their immediate desires.
And when they let the fire go out in their pursuit of the pig,
Yes,
it's a clear signal that they're losing sight of the bigger picture,
they are.
succumbing to their primal urges.
And their actions have devastating consequences.
Oh, yeah.
The fire going out directly leads to Simon's death.
It's like a domino effect.
It's-
One act of savagery leads to another, and the darkness just keeps spreading.
That's a key point.
Mm-hmm.
The descent into savagery isn't a sudden event.
Right.
It's a gradual process.
Yeah.
A series of choices that slowly erode their humanity.
Yeah.
Each act of violence makes the next one easier
Right.
until they're completely consumed by their darker impulses.
And it's not just the boys who are changing, right?
No.
The island itself is becoming more and more desolate as the story progresses.
Right. It's like a parallel descent into chaos.
Yeah.
The once lush landscape becomes scorched and barren,
Mm-hmm.
reflecting the destruction wrought by the boys' actions.
Yeah.
It's a powerful visual representation of how quickly paradise can be lost
Right.
when human nature runs unchecked.
And then, of course, you have the deaths of Piggy and Simon.
Yes,
Those are the real turning points.
they are.
The moments where there's no going back.
Absolutely.
Piggy's death in particular is devastating.
It is.
He's the voice of reason.
Yes.
The one who still believes in rules and order.
Hmm?
And the way he's killed,
So brutal.
so brutally,
So senselessly.
it signifies the complete triumph of savagery over civilization.
It does.
It's hard to read those scenes.
Yeah,
The violence Golding depicts is so raw, so unflinching.
it is.
It's like he's holding up a mirror to our own capacity for cruelty,
Right.
forcing us to confront the darkest parts of ourselves.
And what's even more disturbing is the lack of remorse from Jack and his tribe.
Yeah?
They've completely embraced their savagery, their primal instincts,
Right.
and they seem to revel in the power it gives them.
It's almost like they've become addicted to the violence,
Yes.
to the fear they instill in others.
It's a chilling reminder of how easily power can corrupt,
Right.
how quickly we can lose our humanity when we allow fear and aggression to take control.
And just when you think things can't get any darker, Golding throws in that final twist.
Oh,
The arrival of the naval officer.
talk about irony. This figure of authority representing the adult world, the very civilization the boys have been yearning for,
Right.
stumbles upon this scene of utter savagery.
Yeah.
But here's the catch.
What's that?
He's totally oblivious to what's actually happened.
He doesn't get it.
No.
It's like he sees them as just a bunch of kids
Yeah.
playing a game
Right.
gone wrong.
A game gone wrong. Exactly.
He doesn't grasp the depth of their descent,
Nope.
the darkness they've embraced.
And that's what makes the ending so unsettling.
It really is.
It raises this question.
Oh, what's that?
Is the adult world, the world they're returning to, really any different?
Oh, good question.
Are we all just a thin veneer of civilization away from the same primal chaos?
It's a chilling thought, right?
It is.
Because if even the adults can't recognize the darkness,
Yeah.
how can we ever hope to escape it?
It also makes you wonder if the boys are truly rescued.
Right.
Are they going back to a world that understands the depths of what they've experienced,
Yeah.
the darkness they've encountered within themselves?
Right.
Or are they going back to a world that's just as blind to the potential for savagery as the naval officer himself?
And then there's Ralph.
Poor Ralph.
Our poor, traumatized Ralph.
I know.
The way he reacts to being rescued, it just breaks your heart.
It really does.
He weeps, not just for the loss of Piggy, but for the loss of innocence.
Yes.
For the realization of the darkness that resides within himself and within all of humanity.
That line about the darkness is man's heart, that's the core of Golding's message. The island isn't just a literal place.
Right.
It's a metaphor for the human soul.
Yeah.
And what Golding seems to be saying
What's that?
is that within each of us, buried beneath the layers of civility and reason, lies the potential for savagery,
Yeah.
for a descent into primal chaos.
So I think the big question here is Golding offering any hope?
Right.
Or is Lord of the Flies just a bleak, pessimistic view of human nature?
It's a question that has been debated for decades.
I bet.
Some see it as a purely cautionary tale, a
Okay.
warning about what can happen when we abandon reason and embrace our baser instincts.
But I think there's another layer to it.
Oh,
Maybe it's not just a warning,
okay.
but also a call to action.
Interesting.
A reminder that we have to constantly choose civilization.
Yes.
Choose compassion over violence.
Choose to acknowledge
Yes.
and confront the darkness within ourselves
All right.
and within society as a whole.
That's a really interesting point.
Because if we can recognize the potential for savagery,
Yeah.
maybe, just maybe,
Maybe.
we can also find a way to resist it.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe by understanding the darkness, by confronting it head on,
Yeah.
we can prevent it from consuming us.
It's a complex and challenging book.
It is.
But that's what makes it so powerful. It
Yeah.
doesn't offer any easy answers. It leaves us with questions.
Yes.
With a sense of unease. And maybe even a glimmer of hope.
And that's the mark of truly great literature, isn't it?
It is.
It makes us think.
It makes us feel.
And it stays with us long after we close the book.
Exactly. And ultimately, it's
Yeah.
up to each of us to decide what we take away from Lord of the Flies.
Right.
What meaning we find in its darkness and complexity.
So we want to hear from you.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on Lord of the Flies?
Did it leave you feeling hopeful?
Or despairing? Head over to the Bookspace app
Join our group for Lord of the Flies.
and let's continue the conversation there.
It's a discussion that's sure to spark some debate, and we can't wait to hear your perspectives.
And as always, happy reading.